All right. Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of JNUC. I would like to welcome everybody that is here, as well as everybody that's on the live stream. I'll knock on wood if I had wood over here. Hopefully everything's going great there. First of all, I want to ask you, did you have a good first day, everybody? Good first day? All right, that's awesome. That's really, really good to hear. I know I did because I really enjoy nothing more than talking to, listening to, and learning from our customers. It's really an amazing thing for all of us here at Jamf, honestly, to be with all of you. In fact, I started with Jamf about 5 years ago, a little less than 5 years ago, and I'm as excited about walking into Jamf today as the day that I started. And I can say with complete certainty that I have never felt that way anywhere else. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the big reasons is all of you in the Jamf Nation community. I've never seen a community that is so willing to help each other out, so willing to help solve problems, to challenge each other, to challenge us, to have fun together. All of that is just an amazing thing to see for me, and I honestly, I just want to say thank you. I absolutely love it. All right, thank you. I love the video we just saw because it really reflects what we're trying to do here at Jamf, which is to empower the end users to be their best while making IT the superheroes, because honestly, they're the ones that actually make that happen. The other reason I like the video is it really reflects our mission to help organizations succeed with Apple. And as you can see from what you saw yesterday, I mean, we're going beyond just management to do much more because we want to help organizations succeed with Apple. I'm looking forward to today's keynote because we have a lot of interesting use cases and stories that we want to tell that really that will hopefully inspire you, that you can bring back to your organization to have an impact. Now, I should mention, unlike past years, we actually have 2 simultaneous keynotes going on right now. There's one for education called Jamf in School, which is upstairs on the 4th floor, and then of course we have Jamf at Work, which is this one. So if you meant to be at the education keynote, feel free to go up to the 4th floor right now, and I promise if you're walking out, we will not reenact the shame scene from Game of Thrones. So this is the Jamf at Work session, and we're super excited. I want to recap a couple of things from yesterday. During Dean's keynote, he and the team covered off on a lot of ground. They showed how our management products are embracing and extending all the cool new Apple tech that's come out, including user enrollment customization, single sign-on, the new configuration profiles like Office 365, as well as they showed the ability to manage Jamf Connect within Jamf Pro, which is also really cool. So hopefully going to make a better experience for everybody there. Secondly, the team showed how Jamf Connect is really trying to completely smoothen that entire user experience when it comes to provisioning, signing on, gaining access to all of the resources that you need to get access to with a single identity. And you saw a couple of things that were profiled yesterday. First of all, there was Jamf Connect for mobile, as well as passwordless authentication, where you can use your iPhone to connect to either a Mac or a PC. And then finally, Dean introduced Jamf Protect, which is our new endpoint protection product, purpose-built for Mac. And it's the first one that's on the market, so we're super excited about that. I know you've already been going to sessions on that. There's more to come. And all this was presented in the context of 2 deeply held beliefs that we have at Jamf. The first one is those who choose Mac should be empowered to use Mac. And the second one is those who choose to use Apple should get the very best of Apple, which is really a combination of the user experience, privacy, and security. And our goal is to try to not have to give up on any of those things. That's our goal, and that's what we need to try to do. Today, we are going to build on some of these themes through the eyes of our customers and partners on how they are helping their employees be their best and get the very best from Apple, whether they be corporate employees, whether they be employees that are face-to-face with your customers every day, or whether they're your actual customers. So to get things started, we're gonna begin with this first theme, which is those who choose Mac should be empowered to use Mac. Now, we're not saying, Dean mentioned this yesterday, we're not saying, hey, you need to force Mac onto people. We really want people to have a choice. We simply believe that if people feel their best and most productive and creative with Mac, then they should be empowered to use Mac. And they should be empowered to use Mac in the way that it was intended, the way it was designed. Well, the first step to making this happen is to give people choice. And yesterday you heard from Fletcher, quite a presentation. I hope you enjoyed that. He shared a lot of very, very interesting stats. He's been on stage before, but when you look at kind of the totality of it, higher IT efficiency, lower total cost of ownership, and then all the information that he had about the employees, their performance and retention. Now, as you may have heard, Fletcher was not trying to say cause and effect here, but the point is they're incredible metrics, and it really heightens the demand for people to want to offer choice so that their people can be their best. That's really the point. Since Fletcher came on stage at JNUC 2015, we've seen tremendous growth of Mac demand in the enterprise, and more organizations are offering choice, which makes complete sense. So the big question is why? Well, there's 3 reasons. First of all, many of your employees want Mac. We've done a number of external-facing surveys, and our customers have done a lot of internal-facing surveys, and it shows that up to 72% of employees choose Mac when given the choice. And the reason that they choose Mac is because it makes them more productive, it makes them more creative, and it makes them more collaborative, which to me are 3 pretty important attributes for someone to be successful as an individual and having a positive impact on the organization. The second reason is that it can influence job acceptance and retention, so employment decisions, which is a pretty big deal. One of the surveys that I just referenced a moment ago showed that 77% of employees who are part of an organization that offers choice would accept and stay at a job that offered choice. So it's impacting those decisions. And then third, your future employees want to use Mac because they have been using Apple, many of the Apple products their life as they've been growing up, and so when they come into the workforce, they expect the ability to use Mac. We actually did a survey earlier this year to colleges across the globe, and the most interesting fact that I saw is that 71% of college students either use today or would prefer Mac if upfront costs were a consideration. It's that first stat, use today, was most of that 71%, but for that other percentage, they just think of that initial cash outlay. They're not thinking total cost of ownership because for them, that initial cash outlay is the difference between ramen noodles for a month and probably pizza and beer for a month. So they're making a different decision than we would as an organization. But even if you cut all of these stats in half, the fact is there are still many employees in your organizations and future employees who want Mac, who feel like they will be their best using Mac, and who are making employment decisions if they have choice or don't have choice. So a lot of evidence there to really say it's important. Now there's no doubt that Fletcher and IBM have inspired a lot of companies to start offering choice, and it was both for bottom line and top line reasons. There's a lot of reasons for offering choice. And with this inspiration, we're seeing big companies, small companies, tech companies, non-tech companies now offering choice. Companies like GOAT, True Manufacturing, Cirrus Logic, DNA, Scania, Money Forward, and 75 other companies that are part of our larger Jamf Heroes program that are offering choice. So there's a lot of companies now starting to offer choice. Now there's one company in particular that I would like to highlight, which is International Paper. I don't know if you're familiar with International Paper, but they are one of the world's leading producers of fiber-based paper, packaging, and pulp products. They've got 25,000 employees across 150 countries, and so it's an amazing organization. Well, in 2016, their Apple platform architect, Louis Magnifico, which, by the way, he is the world's best name on the planet, he saw increasing demand for Mac. And so he started to take action. And after a bit of time, he was able to get approval for a pilot in the fall of 2018. So they did an initial rollout. They continued to expand that pilot into 2019. And they expect to be between 500 and 1,000 Macs deployed by the end of this year, which is cool. And they expect to then be launching a full-blown choice program in the US during people's refresh coming into Q1 of 2020. And they anticipate they're going to have thousands and thousands of Macs deployed over the course of the next several years, which is cool. But here's the point of this story. The thing that's interesting is that they did a total cost of ownership study, and what they determined is that Mac is between 20 to 25% less expensive over a 4-year life cycle versus a PC, which is great. We've seen this now in many instances across the industry. But the point for them is that's not the reason that they want to do choice. The reason that they want to offer choice is it's about the people. They want to be able to attract more talent. They want to be able to retain talent to make them productive, and they want to make sure that they're fully engaged. So that's what I love about that story is, they're not a tech company, but they understand that value of wanting to attract the right talent. So with all this data and all this evidence, I think we can only assume that there's going to be more demand for Mac in the enterprise and that more companies are going to be offering choice. Now, as you all heard Dean discuss yesterday, last year when we were at JNUC, we got together with a number of you actually here and asked the question, what's holding you back from offering Mac to all the employees in your organization that would like to have a Mac? And the answer was very consistent, and that is really getting buy-in from information security. It's a no-knock to information security. The fact is they don't have a lot of exposure to Apple and the Apple ecosystem, so this is kind of uncharted territory for them. Well, because of that, and that's one of the reasons why, but you saw yesterday we announced Jamf Protect, which is our new endpoint protection solution purpose-built for Mac. And while there's a lot of reasons why that's important, one of the things that we also love about it is it helps take away one of those barriers in terms of you being able to get that buy-in, then to be able to offer choice and to empower your employees to be their best. So to give you more insight into Jamf Protect and the endpoint protection solution that we announced yesterday, I'd like to bring up on stage Dave McIntyre, the Chief Information Technology Officer. David McIntyre from Build America Mutual, or BAM, which I love that name, and also Andrew Medeiros. He's Senior Product Manager for Jamf Protect. And by the way, it was his birthday this weekend. So let's give him an applause. All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. All right. Thanks for making it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. So excited to have this conversation with Dave. Dave actually predates the acquisition with Jamf, so he has been testing the Protect product and being a client of it for quite some time. Excited to dig into it. Dave, I want to kind of get a breakdown of your environment at BAM, and then go into the discovery of Jamf Protect when you first discovered it, and the advantages to having the solution within your environment and in the enterprise, specifically within your sector. So if you mind introducing yourself and let us know a little bit about the landscape of BAM and the industry that you're responsible for.
Sure. So I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer and also the CISO for BAM, Build America Mutual. We're a mutual insurance company that guarantees municipal bonds. So when city and towns borrow money to do infrastructure projects, we help them lower their interest costs. We've been around for about 8 years, and we've guaranteed about $70 billion of municipal bonds. We're headquartered in New York, so that makes things interesting because we're regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services, which many of you know has a very strict new cybersecurity regulation framework.
And that went into place within the last 2 years? Fairly new?
It was a roll-in period over 3 or 4 years. It's fully in effect now.
Okay. So within your company and the department and the responsibilities that you have in your team, can you break that down a little bit, what that looks like, and how they enable BAM to service? Sure.
So from the very beginning, one of our goals, I'm one of the co-founders of the firm, and one of our goals was to keep IT very small. So we have about 100 employees. We have about 10 people in IT total, 7 developers and 2 system administrators. Actually, Callan, one of our system administrators, is also here. Say hello to her later. We have about 100 employees, and we are fully Mac. So one of our other goals in the beginning was to be Mac-based, because the founders, we all used Macs at home, and we said, let's try to build a financial firm that uses Macs only.
Awesome. What led to that decision to be Mac first? Seems kind of rare for the financial industry.
Yeah, it was mostly, as Dave was saying, it was employee choice. We all, most of our employees use Macs already, and we just, we thought it was going to be easier and also allow a smaller team to support the employees. So one of the things we've always looked for is tools we could use to leverage to support a lot of employees with as few people as possible. Using Macs has been part of that. Jamf has been part of that. It's allowed us to leverage a small team to manage, a reasonable number of Macs. And also, for instance, we started using the Amazon cloud right away. We never had servers. We never had data rooms. We've always looked for tools that would leverage our small IT team.
Gotcha. And with the small IT team, what is their expertise specifically in their areas?
So we have 7 developers that develop our systems, and then, as I said, 2 system administrators who have to do everything. So they are doing everything from figuring out which fuse blew, to hooking up new wires, to setting up new computers, to fixing it, to running our whole cybersecurity program.
Yep, and so how does security come into play for them? What is their specific roles with security in their day-to-day job?
So I'll tell you, 5 years ago, I would say that security was maybe 10% of their jobs. Now, it's probably 50 to 60% of their time is spent on cybersecurity. Not only because of the regulations, but just because we've become a lot more aware of the situation, and it's the thing that keeps me up at night.
Wow, that's quite an uptick.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go back to when you heard about the news of the acquisition. How did that make you feel? You're using Jamf and Digita at the time.
It made me feel pretty smart. I was very happy. I learned about Jamf Protect or Game Plan back in RSA. I went to a talk, and I learned a lot about security.
Right.
And right away, I went and I said, "How can I have that? How can I have that software?"
Absolutely, and that was Patrick's talk, leveraging Apple's game engine to detect threats. Do you remember what about that talk stood out that had you engage with us at the time?
So it seems like a long time ago because I was so innocent then. Patrick's talk, frankly, scared me a little bit. He went through a lot of the malware environment in the Mac world, and it was a lot more expansive than I had thought. We've always relied on software updates and good network infrastructure to keep ourselves safe, but I hadn't really realized the need for endpoint protection until then. So it was a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah, and what would you attribute that to with regards to kind of not knowing the landscape of Mac? Is that...
I think that Apple does a good job of keeping us safe. Their software updates have always been effective. And it just was, not something that was in my mind a lot.
Right. Yeah, and Apple does a fantastic job with the built-in native security tools and what Jamf Protect leverages. So that's amazing. Do you think that when it came to using Protect within your space and you're defining that new security strategy, what were the requirements that came about that you needed to solve in order to make you feel secure with the new kind of understanding of the threat landscape?
So one important thing is that I still need to keep my small team. I couldn't hire a set of cybersecurity analysts. So I needed to be able to have some tool that I could, again, leverage a small team to do a good support. The Protect system has been very easy for us to deploy, and the information it gives us about our Macs is fantastic. It's been very actionable. Very easy to understand, and when we found, a false positive, it's been very easy to tweak the rules a little bit to remove false positives. So we have a SIEM, we have a big security dashboard monitor in our IT area, and when I see a red box go up from Protect, right away we look. It's very easy for us to figure out, what action happened on those Macs, what behavior happened. And make sure it's something that's acceptable.
Right, so you're tweaking analytics to bring the contextualization to your network and making it work for your team.
Yeah.
What was it like for your team to take on a tool that understands Mac, maybe something that they weren't accustomed to when it comes to security? What was that learning curve like?
So it really was a remarkably easy process for us, really. It was very easy to deploy. We deployed it through Jamf, we said the collectors were easy to set up in our SIEM. And the analytics we get out of it are we have to learn a little bit more about Mac OS, but it's a very easy, understandable thing. And it's really exposed us to a part of the Mac framework that maybe we didn't see before. It's been very useful.
Sure. So
we've learned a lot more about the behavior.
Sure. So the tool's helping kind of understand the intricacies of Mac a little bit more.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you have some examples in the wild of alerts that Jamf Protect has detected within your organization?
Yeah, we have a couple, I don't know if they're good stories, they're sort of scary stories, but we had, a few months ago, we had an alert go off in Jamf Protect, and at the same time, our network stopped working, it turned out that one of our employees had downloaded the #1 Chrome plugin, which was UPS Package Tracker. It has 50,000 reviews, 25,000 5-star reviews, which say it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. It helps you track your packages. And then 25 0-star reviews that say, this is taken down my network, it's malware. And so right away, we were able to, Jamf Protect identified immediately what was happening. We were able to isolate that Mac right away. And then we were able to set up rules. We actually realized that Chrome browser plugins were a real Wild West. And so what we ended up doing was through Jamf, actually, whitelist what extensions we allow. So we had every employee send us their extensions, and we just whitelist those.
Awesome.
And so we've sort of shut down random bad plugins.
Right.
So that's a sort of the scariest example. We don't have a lot of DLP concerns in our business, but when we have a person we know is going to leave, they've given it's nice to keep track of USB writes, screenshots. If we have interns aren't really supposed to be doing USB writes. We don't turn off our USB ports, but I can tell if the intern is doing a USB write, which has been really, really good for us. Another example is one employee was using remote access software to access his home servers. Now, it wasn't nefarious, he wasn't doing anything wrong, but it's not something we want to allow. So it was very easy to detect it with Jamf, and then Jamf Protect, and then remove that ability.
Right. So in that instance, you're having a remote connectivity from box and hours that you weren't expecting.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. Excited to fold both your products into the same parent company under Jamf. So excited to have you here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for walking through that. It's really exciting to see what Jamf Protect can do in terms of providing visibility and also providing the security that people are looking for. As I said earlier, our hope is that people will, excuse me here, I'm just going to find my way here, that this will take down one of those barriers that you've had in trying to offer choice. And so we're very, very excited for that to be out in the market. Now, as I mentioned in our opening, we've invited our customers and our strategic partners to come and really tell their stories in terms of how they're empowering their end users to get the very best of Apple and to empower their end users along the way. And there's no partner that's more strategic than this one, for sure. When we first announced our partnership with Microsoft maybe a little more than 3 years ago, Brad, people looked at us a little funny, like, oh, does that make sense? But the fact is it makes complete sense because like us, Microsoft believes that providing purpose-built solutions will provide the best end user experience while also upholding the privacy and security that people need and want. And so, we were perfectly aligned. And that's why we've been working with Microsoft over the last 3 years to do just that. So I would, to describe our progress in terms of what we've done so far and to talk a little bit about where we're going, I would like to invite on stage Brad Anderson, Corporate Vice President at Microsoft, and Jason Woody, Chief Strategist and famous Jamf elder. Here you go.
Hey, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good morning. Thank you guys for letting us take a little bit of your time, and thank you, Brad, for coming and joining.
Pleasure to be here again. I got to talk to you about this transformation you went through. We saw that picture this morning. Maybe you give me some hints afterward. It looks good.
Yeah, I'm trying. Maybe we'll talk the other way, and I'll see if I can.
We'll do it.
I can get the rest of the book up going. So, thank you guys for letting us take a little bit of your time and enjoy our humor this morning. First thing, Brad, we are coming off of a great week last week of news in the Microsoft world. You guys just got done with Ignite. Lots of news and announcements. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, what we should know from this community.
Yeah, it's been an exhausting couple of weeks. At a high level, last week at Ignite, I would say there's 3 big things we talked about. First of all, at the top level, just how we infuse AI into everything. We're going to show a bunch of that today. we just fundamentally believe that you take artificial intelligence and you marry that with humans and you get the best of both and you accelerate both. That's number one. Number two, in terms of Microsoft 365, which is our modern workplace offering, we talked about how we're using AI to help organizations in 3 specific areas: how to be more secure, how to be more compliant, and how to improve the end user experience. And it just aligns so well with what, we're talking about at JNUC. And then the third thing is we brought all of our management capabilities underneath a common brand. And so you won't hear us talking about Config Manager and Intune any longer. We'll talk about Microsoft Endpoint Manager, because we think about that as a continuum, as one holistic solution. And the work that we've been doing together just feeds right into Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
So there's this dialogue that we started our relationship together. It was around the concept of conditional access. And just to kind of come back and talk about it, because it continues to evolve and change and continues to grow. Talk a little bit about what conditional access means today and what it's going to mean as we look at the new world of Microsoft Endpoint Manager.
Yeah, some of the things that are happening in the world, you've got the data moving from behind the firewall out into the cloud, being accessed more and more increasingly on mobile devices. And so what that causes organizations to have to think about is
a little bit of bright white.
Oh, there we go. We can put that in dark mode if we want. It's funny, my slides at Ignite were actually all in darken mode. But this concept of security in a world where the data is outside of the firewall, you have to rethink about how you manage and secure. So the concept of conditional access is having a point of view on the trust level of every identity and every device, and then when access is requested to content, making a decision: do you grant access or block access based upon this union of, is it a trusted user using a trusted device? Now, these data sets are important for everybody to understand, because these are the data sets that we operate on up in the cloud that give us that point of view. We kind of just go around the circle real fast. We service 30 billion commercial authentications a day. Do the math on that. That's going to be over 1 trillion a month very, very quickly. That gives us the most complete view of commercial identities and attacks on identities on the planet. We have 430 billion commercial emails that come through Office 365, so we see every phishing attack. We get a chance to learn at that incredible scale. Those next two numbers, the 900 million Windows PCs and the 190 million Windows, iOS, Android, and Mac devices that my team manages, that gives us the most complete view of commercial enterprise devices and what's happening on those. And then you marry that with the 200 million monthly active users of Office 365. What's important here is we get to operate at this intersection of identity meets device meets app. And it's at that intersection that we're able to learn and iterate to make sure that we empower you to empower your users, but also make sure it's secure. Now let's talk a little bit about conditional access. On this slide, it's a busy slide. On the left-hand side, you have got users, devices, and different characteristics like their location. And on the far right, they're trying to access apps and data. Okay, that could be in the Microsoft cloud, in a third-party cloud, or behind your firewall. This conditional access engine takes all the inputs from the left-hand side, brings it into a decision engine. You can see that we bring in 171 terabytes of data into this a day. And 10 billion times a day right now, we make this determination: is it a trusted user on a trusted device attempting to access data? And then you see on those right-hand side that these conditions can then be automatically applied. Do you block access? Do you grant access? And this is where we've been taking all of the insights that Jamf has, feeding it into our conditional access engine so that you have a richer view on the trust level of the device.
Right on. And I'm going to move back to the darker slide, make it a little easier for you. But one of the
kinds of jokes here we could talk about, but we'll
One of the things that I wanted to illustrate is I think it was a pretty big leap when we had started in doing this and being able to feed the information. And Jamf has always been a vendor who wants to be able to say that we're and, meaning you don't have to choose between the Jamf or Microsoft type of a story. It's an and so we've got some technology that's in market, but we're continuing to make improvements. And what we wanted to be able to illustrate as we look through it is we've heard feedback and are continuing to move forward. In the product releases that you have in your hands today, we've made significant improvements in user experience of how the client access log-on events work. We've resolved some issues that have been identified with full-screen web apps, and we're actually continuing to move forward with the ability to reduce the number of logins, whether you look at how that just works with the Jamf Pro integration or how we continue to add Jamf Connect and some of the support inside of the operating system. If you look at what's next and what's coming in the releases that are right here in front of us, we're adding attributes for you to be able to see what the status of conditional access and reporting is inside of the Jamf Pro console, also giving you the ability to create smart groups from those criteria so you can actually see what's going on to give the additional visibility has been a big point of feedback. And if you look going forward in the very near term, you're going to see us add the ability for you to customize or configure how often you submit, what the retry interval is, and it actually turn on some verbose logging or to be able to collect what is that information that you need to be able to troubleshoot and move forward. Continued investment, and we're going to continue to make this better, hopefully seeing the significant uptake and utilizing the intersection when you invest in the Microsoft infrastructure as well. Yeah. That being said, there's this idea of device compliance that I want to be able to bring forward and maybe have you explain a little bit what's different or what does that mean for us as we move.
Yeah, every organization has got a little bit different definition of what a compliant device is according to their, whether it's their IT pros, their compliance leadership, their security team. So the concept here is being able to ensure that organizations have that flexibility to define what their definition of a compliant device is, capture that programmatically inside of the Microsoft Endpoint Manager in conjunction with Jamf, and then have that automatically applied. I was going to kind of give you an idea about this. At Microsoft today, conditional access, which is based upon device compliance, is required to get access to any content. You can't get access to any content at Microsoft unless your device is managed and compliant. Little known fact, we're actually one of the largest Mac organizations on the planet. We have tens of thousands of Macs internally at Microsoft, and they're all, access to everything that we do is based upon this concept of compliance, exactly. And so, to me, I think the marriage here is really interesting because I think Jamf by far has got the most detailed, the most knowledge and insights about the Mac device itself. You bring that into Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Microsoft 365, and you just have a better solution.
And device compliance, from an awareness perspective, is something that's actually new capability being exposed to us as third party through the Endpoint Manager console. And where you're going to see that support come in is the ability for us to take those attributes that we have and feed it in for devices where maybe you've chosen a specific workflow or a purpose-used device of an iPad in a healthcare environment or a Apple TV that would be in one of your conference rooms. We are going to work to make sure that those devices get exposed as first-class citizens inside the Endpoint Manager console as well. Again, kind of furthering that you don't have to choose between a Microsoft or Jamf solution. It's use the right workload on the right platform to be able to get you that, but you should have the insights no matter where those devices are coming from.
And the way the technology works is Jamf is now writing into an Intune API that actually can capture compliance that we then take into the engine. And so if you've got one of those organizations that you want to use Jamf as the MDM authority, you can do that and still get the benefits of conditional access through this API. Intune is still used, it's just using the backend in the cloud.
Yep, and the specific aspects of the rest of the devices from device compliance is something that's in preview from Microsoft, and we have access and are working in tandem to do that. And as soon as that's general availability, you can expect for us to be able to support that
that's good.
and move forward as well. All right. So the next one that I wanted to be able to share is this is feedback directly from you guys as we had met and we talked last year. By far, access to the Microsoft 365 Cloud and Power BI was something that you either already have and were finding ways to get done, or you were asking Jamf to be able to take on. And we're actually bringing a solution forward. It's called the Jamf Pro Connector for Power BI. And its intent is to be able to take the data that you already have and move it into an environment where you can analyze, visualize, and hopefully join the other disparate data sets that you guys already have inside your environments to view or slice this any way you want. This is actually a completed action from our side. It's actually published to, and the Microsoft Store will be publishing that out for you guys availability on the next cycle. So there's a full session, and I'll put up a slide at the end to make sure you can get some specific details, but the connector for Power BI is actually a thing that you'll be able to get your hands on here in December, and it's just one more step of continuing to leverage the investment that you already have in your Microsoft 365 environment and infrastructure to bring your data forward. We would like to continue to be pushing the envelope for you guys about what's going on your devices, your endpoints, and your success with the Apple platform. Leverage the Microsoft environment to be able to view it, understand the analytics, and bring that all together. All right, one more trip on the white slides. We'll get back to it for you guys. But Brad, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about this idea of identity, and talk to us about what's going on when it comes to Azure.
Go to the light, Woody. Go to the light. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about identity here. Identity really is the foundation of everything, and this actually brings up an interesting point. Identity in its inherent nature is cross-platform. One of the things you may not realize, many of your organizations already own Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 is a per user license, and the user is authorized to use the full capabilities on up to 15 devices. And so it's all about letting users choose the device that they want to operate on. If somebody's using more than 15 devices, we have a different conversation to have with that user, right?
We'll get to Joel later.
That's right. But the important thing on identity, as you think about your security and you think about your approach to security, fundamentally protecting your identities is the most important thing that you need to do. As we look at the breaches that happen, over 85% of them eventually trace back to somebody's credentials being compromised. And so, you take a look at the details here. We have 250 million monthly active users of Azure Active Directory. That's our identity in the cloud. In the same way that Active Directory is the authoritative source for commercial identity on-prem, Azure Active Directory is the authoritative source for commercial identity in the cloud. And it's just going like crazy. If you go to the next slide here, a lot of people think that Azure Active Directory, is that an Office 365 only thing? We just wanted to give you a view of just, Office 365 is a tiny sliver of how AAD is used for access and authentication. In fact, there's over 1.4 million apps that natively take advantage of Azure Active Directory to manage both access and authentication. So we're going to talk more about identity. Joel's going to show some things, but protecting your identity is one of the most critical things you need to do.
And the thing that I wanted to be able to share from our perspective is there are aspects of this that we've been on a journey to continue to expose the Azure work that's done on that side. If your identity is that source, has been exposed inside of Jamf products. The first that I would talk about is just the ability for a user to enroll and continue to use that identity. It gets better with every release from Apple and the customizations that we're exposing. The second would be the way we would look to expose that via self-service so that individuals at the point in time that they're choosing or wanting the additional resources can assert their identity through that interface. The administrative interfaces to the tooling that we have so that you can log in or grant or restrict access to the consoles of the Jamf products using your Azure identity. And if you actually look at some of the things that we have been demoing, or if you have been using over the last year or so with Jamf Connect, the ability to actually take that all the way back into the operating system for things like elevated privilege access on the local device and extending that as well. And one other that was actually really exciting, if you guys aren't aware, make sure that you grab the link in the PDF. It's actually from the Apple side, is the federation with Apple Business Manager. If you start looking at the modern ways that we're moving to the way device access from a management perspective moves, the managed Apple ID in the user enrollment workflows, and the ability to do that with federation with Azure is a big step, and I think all things that we wanted to make sure you're able to take a look at. Again, specific details on these in some of the other sessions that are going on this week, but there's a few things that are actually coming forward that we wanted to be able to talk about as well. And so, Joel, I'm going to ask you to come to the stage. This is Joel Rinnick, who is our product manager of Jamf Connect. And as he gets set up, on the other side, he's going to take us through where the identity and the device actually start to come together to unlock some other cool things. And while he's getting ready, I also wanted to share that one of the things that's on the slide is we are going to bring you in 2020, the beginning of 2020 is the intent, the ability to start to scope not just from your user identity, but the actual groups in Azure Active Directory so that you can bring those back via claims and make sure that all of the information is flowing through those environments and best leverage it to make your life easier from the IT side. But I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Joel.
Thank you, Woody. This is the enterprise session, so I wore my formal clothes, unlike yesterday. All right, so I've got a phone up here, which we can bring up on the big screen, and this guy was a little shy yesterday, but now you can see it, and that's not Brad, but what's behind him.
Right over it a little
This is our Windows 10 Pro, right? Did I get that right?
That's a Surface Laptop 3 running
Surface Laptop 3. All right,
Pro.
and so I've got my phone up here that I've got with that same app that we showed yesterday, logging into the Mac all the time. Since I said it can work as a FIDO key, we can also log into Windows with roaming Windows Hello for Business.
Yes.
Cool.
You got it.
All right. Terms are new to me. So is the interface. So here we have our Windows system, and if I touch it, there we go. All right, so now we're actually logging in It's now finding my phone over Bluetooth, and so we're doing a Bluetooth FIDO2 operation here. And like I said, a little shy, so it takes a second or two. We'll have that fixed before we ship this. But I'm now going to sign onto this system. It says in progress talking. My hands have been up here the whole time, and now I'm actually logged in to this machine with the identity that I put on my phone with my Jamf Connect for mobile app on the phone. Right? So now, just using one finger, because I'm still getting used to this touch thing. So if I bring up Edge, and I do portal.azure.com, and this is one of the things that's really cool about this. Since I've signed into Windows Pro with my Azure identity at the login window, I'm actually already signed into Azure here. All right, and if I sign out, it's kind of cool. So this is our Azure identity, and you can see it's connected to Windows because all of this kind of flows through together. So we've taken this identity that you have on your iPhone that can now sign you into your Mac without using a password, and we've now opened up Azure and the Windows environment for you as well. So if I click on this and I go back into it, I can show you kind of how the pieces are glued together. If I go in and view account, no, view account. There we go. All right, view account. And now I can go to, this is kind of like your settings, user profile, whatever, where you might set things up within there. And in here, I'm going to have security settings, and one of those are going to be all of the FIDO keys that are associated with my user. And it's going to come. It's there. So I'll just talk for a little bit longer. All right, and this is where we can actually register our FIDO key with your Azure identity is in your profile here. And so if I go over here to edit security info, and in here, you're going to see I've actually got 2 FIDO keys associated with that. I've got a couple of phones. Maybe I am one of the ones that have 15 devices with that on it. So in this particular case, this is my demo phone here. That's the information about it, when it was last registered and last used. That is my identity that's on the phone being used to sign into Azure, which then allows me to sign into my Windows laptop. So Jamf isn't changing who we are. We still, and we had some internal conversations about this. It was kind of funny. In hindsight, didn't seem as funny at the time maybe. We didn't have to write a line of code for Windows, all right? Because we created a FIDO2 security key, which we wanted to be able to use for Azure and other things on the Mac, it just worked with roaming Windows Hello for business. Do I have to say the trademark, or does it?
We'll let you go.
All right,
You're
cool.
good.
All right. So it just works with that, and it's really nice. So we're excited to offer a lot more options because we know you might have a lot of users, like we said yesterday, that might not have full access to a choice program yet, and we'd like to show them the excitement of what you can do on iOS devices, so we have that up there. So with that, I'll hand it back to the 2 of you. Thank you very much.
And before you go, Joel, do me one other favor and talk a little bit about some of the work that you're doing and explain where the partnership and continued effort around integration with other aspects of SSO with the Microsoft team is coming.
And thank you for bringing that up. So we've had a great relationship with Microsoft, particularly around this piece, as we've developed Jamf Connect and had it leverage more and more within Azure. When Brad showed that 1.5 million applications within Azure, 1.5 million?
1.4, yeah.
There's a chunk of those that are Jamf Connect applications. Because when you sign into your Mac with Jamf Connect, you're actually using an application created in Azure, which is one of those 1.4 million. So we're very excited to keep driving that number up, and we'll continue to do more with that. So the relationship has been really great. We've been working with Microsoft engineers, Microsoft product managers to deliver on this, and the FIDO key stuff has been really cool. As we've been able to get into that, do with that. We also know that you're working on the single sign-on extensions so that you can even get Azure further integrated into Catalina. Right. And we're very excited when those come out because we are really looking forward to having your phone or some identity either through Jamf or through Microsoft be there for you so you can sign into all your services and resources without having to keep typing the passwords and doing all that other work. So I think we're very close to some really, really cool things that you'll see from us even more shortly.
Thank you, Joel.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
The thing that I wanted to share, and again, very much appreciate, you're seeing some early things, but the hope is to be able to share this story or the arc that we're talking about, that, hey, our work together actually makes your lives easier and is extending the way that we can make the resources already available to your users easier to digest, as well as ultimately make users more powerful. One of the things that we absolutely deal with in our organization and every organization is we're impacted by Office. And access to Office is something that has been ubiquitous, and it's, I actually didn't realize until Brad had chatted before, 35 years of Office on the Mac.
Yep, 35 years.
And give us a little bit of an idea of where it's going.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I was talking to Woody about, we've now had Office on the Mac for 35 years, but the last two have been transformative. Historically, we had a different code base for Office on the Mac than from Windows, from iOS and Android. And over the last 2 years, we've now brought it into one code base. So what does that mean for you? What that means is now as we come out with new capabilities, because it's in one common code base, it comes across all the platforms at the same time. So it's not in a model where something comes out on Windows and then you wait 18 or 24 months before it hits on Mac. It's all common code. And so that just allows us to scale and to offer new capabilities at just an incredible rate. In fact, if you move to the next slide, this is a view of just what has come out on Office on Mac in just 2019. And so, you know, the rate and the velocity at which we're able to bring new capabilities out is so predicated on the fact we have this common code base now. And we're going to show you here in a minute things like Office completely 100% rewritten from the ground up. And so we want to actually dive in and just kind of show you some of the new innovations. All right, so let's go over here and show you a couple of things. Put my reading glasses on here. You know, when you get old, you lose your hair, your eyesight's next. Okay, so wait for this to come up here. All right, let me give you just a quick kind of view of what you're seeing in some of the new Office capabilities. Some of this you may see already. A lot of this you'll see coming into preview. The first thing here is you're looking at the landing page of Word, and this is common across all the apps. Where you see this recommended bar, this is literally tracking. It's like a social media feed for you of the documents that you're working on, what's been shared with you, place where you've been mentioned at, so you can see, you know, things you need to be working on. And right here we give you a listing of the most common things that you've been working on. So let's go a little deeper, show you a few more things here. And the first thing I want to start with here, I'm going to show you some of the things that we have done in Office with respect to co-authoring. Now, if you think about co-authoring for a minute, it's changed my life and how I work. Gone are the days when I send an attachment, I get all the feedback back, then I have to compile. I want to have everyone working on the same document at the same time. So I come up here, I can see presence, and I can take a look here, and I can see that Alex is in working on the document, and I'll show you in a minute here where he's working at. But here you have this feed of comments. And so I can come in here, for example, and I can come in here and do an @mention. And so if I come in here, let's get in there, and type @ I can bring in the people. I can put a comment in there. I have a question here where you edit this, but it allows all of you to work inside of one document. And of course, this is cross-platform in nature. Coming back up again here and just on the presence, it would show you where the location is, but you can come down here and you can actually see generally where the person is working at. Looks like we're having a little bit of a connection issue on you, but it just makes it easy to co-author. Co-authoring does change your life. I want to show you one place where we're infusing AI into Word itself and some of the things we're helping you. One of the key things we're trying to do is help you build world-class documents, professional documents, documents that are inclusive. And so, you've all seen the places, oops, sorry about that, where you get squiggly lines. Let me show you some of the new squiggly lines, and I'm going to come down here and find a couple. You've seen this, like, where you see complacent, and it comes up and gives you some things around clarity and conciseness. Let me show you some of the new things. You're going to see these come up where you've kind of got like a gold little squiggly line underneath it. And so let me find one or two of these and show you things like, okay, cutting edge. If I click on that one, it's a vocabulary choice. Maybe you'd be better to use innovative. Let me show you one of the favorite things that I've looked at. Businessmen here. If I click on that, it comes back and says, that's not inclusive language. You should change it to business people. Let me give you just a quick insight on this. We've done research where we publish a job description with certain words in it, and it will attract 2 different communities based upon the words you use in a job description, if the language is inclusive or not. It matters. And now we're going to help you with AI infused into Office. Okay, so now with that, let's go and look at Excel for a minute. I don't build enough pivot tables and tables inside of Excel to be a pro at it, so let's show you how AI helps out. So I can click in any tab here, and I come to this ideas on the toolbar. You're going to get to love ideas. Ideas is literally just sent that data up in the cloud and it came back with some suggestions on what you might want to put in terms of Power Pivot and tables. Right? Like that would have taken me 10 or 15 minutes to do in the past. You tried to do that in the past? Yes, I see heads going up and down. Now you can even have questions like, how are sales in confection? And it'll actually come up and show you what the sum of the sales are, but you actually have natural language to help you understand how you can actually now wallow and learn from your data. Let's move over to PowerPoint real fast. Question for you, Woody, here. Have you ever built a deck that looks like this?
I think that's how I sent you our original slides, Brad.
All right. What if I could turn this into a professional deck in less than a minute? You want to see it? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. Now what's happening here, you're going to see ideas automatically pop, and it says, wow, this is AI that's infused in that data just went to the cloud, and we're coming back with suggestions. Let's help you build a powerful deck. All right, so let's go to the next slide here. This is a project scope. It's going to come back with some ideas on what I can do here. Let's go ahead and select this one over here. Right, we've got some goals. It actually is looking at the words right now, and it's going through it and trying to understand different aspects that are in the words. Let's go back into design ideas here. This case, it's a milestone, and so it gives me options to do things in a milestone kind of a format. Go back to the one here before. I'm going to get to it.
They're getting ahead of you on the demo, Brad.
All right, hold on here.
Who knew that was going to be the lead, huh?
Man. Let me drill into this just a little bit, though. Remember that this was a timeline? It sensed it was a timeline and said, let me help you build a professional. So it's like having a designer in your pocket. Here, if I come and take a look at things like the words, take a look at the iconography. It matches the words in the paragraphs there. But just that easy. This is how you can basically take a white deck that Woody and I would build and turn it into a deck that looks like someone professional did it. All right. Let's go into Outlook for a minute. Completely new Outlook. Designed from the bottom up, new sync engine, new search engine. Everything is new in it. So let's kind of show you a couple of pieces in it. If I come in here and I look at calendaring, we have these concepts called quick cards. I can click on this, and it's just that easy now to go build an appointment, set a meeting appointment. Come back to the main path here. I can come now and I can completely customize what I want on my toolbar. So I can customize the toolbar here. Let's say that I want undo to be up in there, but you have complete control on what you want on that toolbar. And the search is new. The search is world-class inside it. And so if I start typing things in here, it actually looks into your address book, and it'll help you just do an immediate search. But Outlook has been completely redesigned. The interface, the sync, the search, everything. And this is the app that people spend more time in than any other single app in Office. While we're on the dark mode theme, OneNote in dark mode. Let me end on one thing. Let me end on Edge. I want you to notice just how Edge now actually looks like an Office app. Just like I had before, my most commonly used files, the things that have been shared with me. With Edge now, and this is the Edge that is based on Chromium, you'll have a common browser that's based on common code across all the platforms. This will release on January 15th. And it has that right balance of empowerment, privacy, security. So it does give you that one browser that can be used across all the different platforms. Now, one last thing real fast. We talked about the partnership that we have. Let me just kind of drop into the admin console for a second and out of Office 365. This is the Microsoft Endpoint Manager console where we are now surfacing up all of the things that we do across the management tools that I build. If I come and look at devices here, and I look at all devices, right here, you'll see right here, for example, is a Mac device that's being managed by Jamf. It now appears in our administrative console, and you can come into this, and you can actually dive in and see all the details, and you'll see it's making this more and more rich over time. But it's a wonderful partnership, and the value that comes into all of you as we combine our unique strengths is real.
I appreciate you walking through it. The rest of the story from the Jamf perspective that is able to support this is I don't have great features that are going to get in front of your end users and make them more powerful. That's what the rest of the demo from the Office side is. But we do have some capability that we're trying to make your lives easier that's in Jamf Pro. Michael Devins talked about it a little bit yesterday, this idea that we can bring configuration capabilities into Jamf Pro from an external source. One of the ones that we primarily targeted was the ability to configure Microsoft Office, and one of the slides that we had before was that ability to deploy Office from the Mac App Store. Continued investment from Microsoft and Jamf to try and make sure that the most commonly used apps and ways that your users are accessing the apps on the devices are actually there and available for you guys to get out and deploy. And the last piece that I wanted to leave with you with is this was very much a very rapid overview of a lot of things that we've talked about, and I didn't get that far into the details. There are sessions all over this week from some really good folks who are actually doing this in the field, as well as some of the things that I've previewed that are coming that are being talked about. If you missed yesterday, the recordings will actually be out there. There are sessions today and tomorrow specifically on things like the Power BI work, continued access with conditional access, and the work that we're doing. And just from a quick summary, conditional access is going to continue to get better. Device compliance is a way that you're going to see additional devices and the way you define compliance in your organization be exposed in the Microsoft environment as it flows in from Jamf. You're going to see the Power BI connector and make that available to you here in the fourth quarter. We're going to continue to focus on identity and how your users access their apps on the devices that they choose in whatever way we can, trying to make that easier. And our hope is that with things like the additional customization and configuration, we have more work that we can be doing together. And anything else that we're talking about, and Brad, myself, and the team that's available are constantly taking that feedback to try and make your life easier, to make your users more powerful. Thank you, Brad and team, for the work you do, and I appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thanks. All right, well, thank you, Brad, for being here once again at JNUC. It's so exciting to see all the progress that's been made and where we're headed together. There's so much opportunity, and our whole point is about creating value for all of you. Although when you got into this whole, go to the light, dark mode, I was kind of wanting you to just break into an arm wrestling match and see what happens, just to settle it. I don't know. But anyway, it's a great partnership. We so much appreciate it, and we continue to look forward to working together. A lot of our conversation today has really been about empowering your end users to be their best and to get the best out of Apple, and it's been very focused on the corporate employees. But you really, to get the best out of Apple, thinking about all of the devices, thinking about all of your end users, so not just your corporate employees, but your customer-facing employees that are shoulder to shoulder with your customers, as well as your actual customers. There's so many different ways with all of this to really imagine ways to drive increased productivity, to reimagine workflows, and to really transform your organizations. So, to spark some ideas and give you some inspiration to try to achieve those objectives, I would like to bring to stage now Josh Jugfeld, Director of Industry Solutions here at Jamf. Let's welcome Josh. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. As all of you in this room are fully aware, the Apple ecosystem affords the opportunity for an organization to really create truly inspired technology experiences for employees, IT professionals, and customers alike. With a unique blend of hardware, software, services, partners, and integrations, there really are endless possibilities about how this ecosystem can help to modernize legacy workflows or actually entirely transform business processes. Across the next set of customer stories and partner stories, you'll learn how organizations can actually pair a lot of these complementary parts together within the Apple ecosystem to drive that better employee and customer experience and increase employee productivity at the same time, all without having to sacrifice, which happens so frequently, the user privacy or the security envelope. Now, to start off, I'd like to take a quick trip down memory lane. Who here was here for JNUC 2018? For those of you who were here, you may remember the SAP IT Services team introducing their new Apple Center of Excellence initiative. This initiative uniquely pulled apart the traditional IT concept of really managing mobility and endpoints in separate teams, and instead smashing it all together to create a management ecosystem that had discrete teams, tools, strategies, and processes. At the beginning of this journey, the SAP IT Services team had to enroll 17,000 Macs into Jamf Pro and migrate 83,000 iOS devices from their on-premise MDM solution into Jamf Pro, with the primary consideration being that most of these devices were already deployed in the field. Sounds really easy, right? No big deal. Well, the project has continued on since then, and to tell us more about how that journey has gone in the last year, including what's next, I'd like to welcome to the stage VP IT Services Enterprise Mobility at SAP, Martin Lang. Hey, Martin. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah. Awesome. So it's been a year now, and your team has certainly been busy. You told us that you were building an Apple at SAP Center of Excellence, managing 17,000 Macs, 83,000 iOS devices, and 170 Apple TVs, all as one ecosystem. But a huge part of that initiative was actually moving all of those devices over into being managed with Jamf Pro. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that process has gone in the last year?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So you might remember, if you've been here or if you watched it online last year, the demo of Julia, who was a new hire, and I gave her her corporate phone here on stage, and she enrolled it into our production system, right? And you've seen the whole process from taking it out of the box, fresh iPhone, until she was fully productive, not just with mail and calendar and contacts, but also apps and certificates on the device and everything. We were at the time live with Jamf Pro and in the Jamf Cloud for our new devices, and we're enrolling them with automated MDM enrollment, and that was going super well, but we had not started this migration. We still had these 80-some thousand devices back in our old MDM, happened to be our own SAP internal solution that was since retired, and we still had to migrate those devices. And as you said, those devices were fully deployed, so all over the globe in people's hands, and they needed to be productive. So we were working on migration tools to make this really simple so that everybody could do this themselves without needing our help or our IT colleagues' helps in the field. And by February, we were ready to kick off the migration. And it took us 6 months for everybody to essentially press the button, literally actually press a button that said migrate to Jamf and get their device migrated to Jamf Pro with remaining fully productive. All the apps that were previously installed came back on those devices. And we were done, like I said, by end of July, and August we shut down the old system. We've been quite happy with this, so happy in fact that we actually decided along the way to move our Macs into the Jamf Cloud as well. They are currently on a Jamf Pro on-premise system.
That's awesome. So yeah, you've been busy, certainly, but you migrated an incredible amount of devices over to Jamf Pro, and you really had the user drive that task. I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit more about the nuance of that. What hurdles did you have to jump over, and how did that process go?
Yeah, it is quite unique when you have a lot of mobile apps, and we do. We've kind of started, I told you that story last year, started as a mobile app development team, and then only later kind of acquired also the MDM functions as part of our team. And when you have a lot of apps on the device, in-house apps that are not from the App Store and no VPP, right, and it's actually challenging to migrate from an old MDM, from some MDM, really doesn't matter which one, into Jamf. But the process, and you actually see this playing in the background now, it actually is going to repeat playing the video. You kind of see this here, how we did this. It really was a button that was called Migrate to Jamf. And technically, without going into too much detail, we kind of saved the apps that people had previously installed in the keychain, because the keychain remains intact, even if you do an unenroll and a re-enroll. Then had people go over to the enrollment page. The tool facilitated that. They enrolled in the new MDM. We push an app called Apple at SAP. You saw that app last year. It uses the Jamf certificate SDK to pull down single sign-on, but it also looked in the keychain which apps were previously installed and pushed them right back on the device. So literally in less than 5 minutes, depending on Wi-Fi, which is kind of important, on a good Wi-Fi situation, really super fast, everything was migrated, which is really quite a technical undertaking, but our end users were all able to do this themselves.
And at any given time, how many people were migrating, during a day?
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine 80,000 in 6 months. So on some days, we had way more than 1,000 people migrate their devices. I was actually monitoring those numbers on a daily basis, looked at a smart group on devices enrolled in the last 24 hours. And sometimes it was 1,000 or 2,000 even. I saw with very few tickets that came in, we really only heard of maybe 10 support cases that people opened up or IT link center walk-ins. We call IT link centers these support desks around the world. Very few issues. Most users had been able to do this themselves, which we were super happy with.
That's amazing. So they migrated all these devices, and they were going from an on-premise MDM tool into Jamf Cloud. Tell us a little bit about how that migration into Jamf Cloud has gone and what your experience has been.
Yeah, so we at SAP, we embrace the cloud. We are the largest enterprise application software company in the world, and a lot of our products are also cloud-based nowadays, so we have no problem with the cloud. And with the iOS, we had it maxed on-premise, as I said, on a Jamf Pro on-premise instance, but with the iOS devices, we decided from the start we'll try this in the Jamf Cloud. We had, of course, when you talk to Jamf and you say, I have 80,000 iOS devices, then they also this is not so usual yet, but scale was no problem. From the first 1,000 devices to the first 20,000 to now 85,000 or so, the system went super smooth. And we managed really with this cloud implementation to make the process for our users even easier. From, like I said, taking the device out of the box to being fully productive with everything. We love it.
That's awesome. We love that too. You mentioned that this process really forced you to change the mindset of how your IT team works. Historically, focused on successfully deploying devices within an organization to a spec. And now you're much more focused as a team on the user and productivity and efficiency. How has that change of mentality played out for your team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think when you have a situation where a lot of things on setting up an iOS device for work are cumbersome, when you need to go through manuals on how to configure certain apps, and when users get log-on screens and credential screens to log on to things, there's a lot of friction. And then it's tough to really have a discussion about how can I make you more valuable in your role, right? How can I make you as a salesperson a better salesperson in your role? But now we have basically all this friction removed. We really saw this last year already in the demo, and that's still the case. To enroll a device, you really only enter your password once. Everything else is certificate-based and single sign-on. All the apps, and we do a lot of them, everything is a single sign-on. So now we can really have those discussions, and in my team as well, especially on the app development side, on how can we make that salesperson more productive with an iPhone and an iPad and a Mac, and how can we make an HR person more productive? And we go more and more into these business conversations on how IT can be more strategically relevant and less being in the business of really getting the device up and running, because that just goes like this. And now we can get real value on those devices.
That's a pretty transformational concept. You mentioned apps were a big part of that, right? So last year you alluded to it. We obviously know that SAP is an amazing app creator. Your team and the greater SAP app team has spent time building a lot of native iOS and macOS apps for not only the end users, but the IT teams to enhance workflows. Tell us a little bit about the types of people that are using apps and how you make them available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we started as an app development team, and we started to build apps for our salespeople, because those folks are on the road, right, as you can imagine, all the time with our customers. Also, they have customer FaceTime, right, so we want them to have the most modern tools. So that's who we started with, and you see behind you now self-service and the sell category. This is how salespeople would find the apps that are relevant to them. You also see they follow, for the most part, a certain iconography, if that is a word. I don't know,
yeah.
But they are all, we call this SAP Gold, this color. You can call it whatever you like. But we also have a Get Started category, so, and we since branched out to build apps for other roles in SAP as well, apps for managers, apps for finance people, for CFOs, to see how we can help them. On the Mac, I believe a similar thing will happen with Catalyst, and we actually are already working working on bringing some of our iPad apps, iPhone, iPad apps, our iOS apps over to the Mac. This is going to happen. SAP has this partnership with Apple that many of you might have heard about also, of bringing these new user experiences to people that use SAP systems as their financial and sales and so forth systems.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So let's take a trip over here to the demo station.
Sure.
You've mentioned that you have a unique way to be able to look into the world of who's using applications at what time. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that whole concept.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we have actually a pretty cool, let's call it a dashboard. So this is, I'm not kidding, this is not a demo, it's not a video, this is a real-time visualization of apps being used at this moment in time by SAP employees. Right? So not by our customers, we wouldn't, of course, be allowed to track this, but I'm IT, so I am allowed to track it for our SAP employees. We don't track usernames, of course, because that would be an intrusion of privacy also, but we are allowed to track it by country, and you see this is very busy. It's actually very busy whenever you look at it. You see apps being used in various countries on the top, and on the bottom you see kind of what type of apps these are, but our SAP people use a lot of apps, and this is important for us, even down to our developers. It's actually very rewarding for them to see the things that they work on being used. So we look at this quite a bit. Every ping that you see here also goes into a database, a HANA database from SAP, and we can report on this on a monthly or quarterly basis and so forth, and see which apps are really top used and which apps are little used. We do get from Jamf Pro also installation statistics, right, from the inventory, but this goes far beyond that because it talks about actual usage.
Yeah, it gives you a really unique window into where to spend your time developing, where to update apps, and who to invest in.
Right.
That's pretty great. So if I'm finding apps as an employee through self-service and I kind of already know what exists, how is it that I go about discovering apps that might be new? Tell me a little bit about that.
So I believe, marketing and promotion for cool stuff that IT people do is actually a bit underrated, I think. In our team, we try to change that paradigm and do a whole bunch of marketing for our stuff, because if we develop the greatest app and nobody knows about it in SAP, I'm not going to see the bubbles, right? And it's not going to be cool. So there is many ways how apps can be promoted, and actually Jamf helps us with some of that too. So I brought an example with me.
Yeah, we have a slide here. We can show that example.
We can switch to that slide, which has a poster on it. You see this poster, SAP Today, that promotes an app that can be used to display the lunch menu, which for SAP people is always very important. What's for lunch? The app actually does a whole bunch of other things as well, but it also does lunch. And I didn't even know about this poster. I walked into our cafeteria just last week and saw this and thought, this is quite amazing. You might not be able to read it, but at the bottom it says scan to install. And we changed that QR code so that you don't get our lunch menu. But you'll get the JNUC app. But I gave Josh here on his iPad the QR code, and I just want to show you how simple this is, the scan to install. So if we switch back to my iPhone, here, there you go. I would just open the camera, right? All of you have done this before, to scan a QR code, and I'll scan this QR code. It says open it self-service from the top. I click this once, self-service thinks about it for just a moment, and it says app installation is in progress. I don't have to do anything else. And if I go back to the home screen, I'll see the SAP Today app installing right now. Right? Basically, no other interaction required other than scanning the QR code. I want to do some Joel sounds. Ooh.
So Martin is officially announcing that no SAP employee ever has to be left out of lunch again. That's a big revelation. Well, that's cool. So I'm curious, though. You had mentioned that you have this IT app as well. So maybe you can give me an idea about what that's all about.
Yeah, so IT is, of course, in SAP, IT is about 3,000 people. So it's also a line of business to us, right? Just like salespeople and HR people and so forth. So we want to also make IT people more productive. My team is relatively small, but we work with our large field IT organization to support all of our 70-some thousand users, right? SAP has 99,000, but 75,000 of them have at least one Apple device. So we built an app that we call iOS Assist that helps IT people to provide a better and more personal support to end users who come to them with an Apple device and have a problem.
So it's not just end users who are enjoying this app experience, but I'm curious now, throughout all of this, then you have end user apps, you have IT apps, you've migrated all these devices, you've shifted and focused with your group. How many devices are you actually managing today at SAP?
Yeah, so I get that question a ton. And actually, we built a little bit of a functionality into this iOS Assist app, and I'm going to show you how this works. Just going to ask my phone how many devices we have. Right? How many devices do we manage? And
SAP manages 84,731 iOS devices right now.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what exactly was just happening there?
Yeah, so this is, as you can probably imagine, this is a Siri shortcut that we built into the iOS Assist app that in essence does a Jamf Pro call, Jamf Pro API call, and gets back that number. So it comes back in real time. You saw how fast this was. I think it said just a sec, but then it came in. Yep. And I'm not using your Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's just a Jamf Pro API call to bring back that number.
Very cool. Would you mind taking us through a quick demo of the iOS Assist app while you're at it?
No, I wouldn't mind at all.
Awesome.
So let's go into iOS Assist. Oh, I'm actually already here. The Analytics tab is a tab that we added that actually every SAP employee can actually install this app. This has no authentication yet. No Jamf Pro privilege is required yet to display those numbers. Every SAP employee can see those numbers. You see the total number of managed iOS devices right now. Eventually, as we talked earlier, this will include the Macs, but today they're on a different instance, and right now this is just for the cloud instance, and so just for the iOS devices. You see the breakdown, which some of you might find interesting, on how many supervised devices we have, how many unsupervised. The supervised generally are all the new ones we bought since last year, right? This is 1 year worth of purchases of iPhones. The unsupervised are the ones that were all migrated from our old MDM. So that number is currently still going down as people switch to new devices, and you see the breakdown by iPhone, iPad, and also Apple TVs. But then, and where it gets really to IT support, I have this admin tab, and it actually lets me favorite some devices. I favorited Rich's and Philip's device. Just if they have some problem, I could directly, quickly go to their device. But I'm not going to do that right now because that would also be an intrusion of privacy to show you their data. I happen to be an admin, obviously, privileges-wise on this Jamf Pro instance to see this. But I'm searching for a device called JNUC, and this happens to be this demo device that I have in my hand right now. And if I go into it, I see a bunch of metadata, the serial number, and I can also copy and paste it because sometimes in a support case I might need to throw that serial number somewhere else, but I see the last inventory, obviously the iOS version. All these things can be very handy in a support situation, and it enables our support people, to help SAP employees in a conversation, just like we are having right now. If you had an issue, I could help you. I wouldn't have to turn my back and log on to Jamf Pro on a computer. I can help you directly. I see the single sign-on certificate expiration date and more fields. I have all the management options available to me that Jamf Pro allows me to execute on this device. These are, of course, quite a few because this happens to be a supervised device. Maybe most important for support purposes, I see the log history of this device, so I can go in there and see all the recent commands that Jamf issued to this device, including a pending installed app list, which came just from installing the SAP Today app. So the update to the inventory is still pending, but who cares? I could flush it. You see the flush button if I wanted to. So this is really helpful, like I said, in support cases. I think I'll conclude the demo with rebooting this device, issuing that command, so you see that this is really real life. It says the command was issued and my phone is rebooting. You'll see the Apple logo in a second.
That's very cool. So if that wasn't enough to cover, I just want to ask you very briefly about what's next. What is your team thinking about beyond this migration?
Yeah, so there's always lots of ideas, in SAP of things, of other things we can do. We think right now that we want to expand quite a bit more on our Apple TV story. We have 250 Apple TVs. If you looked at the number right now that are managed, this is a relatively low number, especially compared to the number of screens we have in SAP offices all over the world. Screens in coffee corners and in lobbies and in offices of managers and everywhere. And I want to power those. We already have those 250 and we built 5 apps already, but I want to expand on this. The team wants to expand on this. We know how to build apps. We obviously, I mentioned this before, we are currently working on getting our Macs into the Jamf cloud. This should be exciting, so we have to do less server maintenance on the on-premise system, and Jamf can handle this for us. And we have 80,000 devices in there already, so another 25,000 shouldn't be a big deal. And lastly, we also work actually on an analytics framework. SAP happens to be an analytics company as well, and we have our own SAP Analytics Cloud solution. And so we are actually currently connecting our Jamf Pro environment and are working with Jamf for this to our SAP Analytics Cloud. We want, and as I'm sure many of you, and the Power BI option is probably also a very good option for this, but to get historical data out of this, to also compare some Jamf data with employee data, which roles, top 10 apps by role, right, and things of that nature. Yep. So this is also going to be super cool.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be busy for quite some time. I'm blown away by how transformational this story is. This is a team who's changed their entire mentality in the span of a year and then migrated almost 100,000 devices while doing it. Thank you so much for joining us on the JNUC stage today, and we'll look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Martin. So from empowering employees to migrate or enroll over 100,000 devices, from an on-premise MDM solution into Jamf Pro in the cloud, to redefining the role of IT from focused on the device to the end user, it's really not hard to imagine how this SAP IT team is one of the most forward-thinking IT teams in the world. Now, don't forget to stop by this room later today at 2:45 p.m. to hear Rich Troughton from the SAP team in a session called MDM, From Nice to Have to Necessity. Yeah, Rich. And if you'd like to learn even more about the SAP and Jamf story, check jamf.com today, and you'll actually be able to see a case study that we're just releasing today. So you'll be able to find out more. Now, like you just heard from SAP, giving employees the choice of device can actually be a real productivity driver. But we've also learned along the way that when you embrace devices and have to engage them with infrastructure, complex applications, you can encounter a lot of maladies that can be difficult for a user to address themselves. Now, in another study that we did earlier this year that Jamf commissioned, we learned about employee choice programs and companies who are embracing the Mac having 2 particular things that stood out for your average Mac user. The first of these 2 problems that we ran into when trying to integrate within complex infrastructure environments was all around connectivity and login issues, and then credential issues in Wi-Fi and networking. So all of these things bundled together to create roadblocks for people who just didn't know how to get access to services or infrastructure. Now, these problems can leave users locked out, unfortunately. They can cause them to do unnatural things, either use insecure networks or create workarounds to just get their work done so that they don't feel stuck. And unfortunately, what that does is it introduces a lot of risk or a lot of problems that users can fall into where they are then not being productive anymore. So I'd like to invite Lee Cheddar, Solutions Architect from Okta, to the stage to talk about how Jamf and Okta are combating these problems to make a more productive, secure, and delightful Mac user experience. Lee?
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you. I'm Lee Cheddar. I'm based here in Minneapolis, so welcome to my town. I'm glad you got the authentic Minnesota weather experience. That really actually makes me very happy. But yeah, so I have a lot to say in very little time, so I'm going to go really fast. My presentation is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones you've seen in the fact that I want to tell a story, a lot from my perspective, and really focusing on the things that are priorities for me right now. And we are really working closely with Jamf on how do we do things better. We are really co-developing. We are trying to elevate that security posture and usability at the same time. They're not something that has to be separate any longer. We've really had this balancing act for a very long time, and there's been many phases to what we've had to do in IT. You know, the introduction of the personal computer to mobile to cloud and SaaS has all happened in a very short amount of time. And when you really think about the constantly changing business requirements, security challenges, and the regulations that all come with that, we've probably all need to admit we've probably made some mistakes. There's things we could have done better. And we also need to recognize that we've also continued to innovate. We never gave up. And we really never stopped innovating. And that's really all that matters at the end of the day. So today's technology landscape, again, mobile, forward, SaaS, and cloud, presents some really interesting opportunities to integrate these best-of-breed solutions. So I'm excited to talk about how Jamf and Okta together are driving this innovation. In the next few minutes, I want to acknowledge some of the mistakes that I've made. I hope some of them resonate with you. And then focus on solutions that are available today. And then I want to talk a little bit about the future. What are we able to do going forward? My background a little bit, I've spent over 20 years working in IT. I spent more than 10 years focused purely on security. And I will be the first to admit, I haven't put the needs of the business or the users first in many decisions that I made. There was often a winner and a loser, productivity lost to security, or there was a business priority project that got pushed out for another project that was competing for the same resources, the same budget. And it was really honestly rare that we were able to make everybody happy. Everything was a compromise, and that was just the current state of affairs. So what were our end users experiencing? What did we actually have as the perception for IT? And the IT department made my laptop run slow as a user. They made me remember a dozen passwords, and they were constantly changing things for no obvious reason other than making my life more difficult. That was it. And there was constant roadblocks. So what did the IT department see? Well, the IT department was spending their time on help desk calls. They were manually imaging and configuring end user hardware. They were dealing with the latest threats to the environment, which are constantly evolving. And so we were really not able to spend time innovating. We spent a lot of time reacting and not innovating. Now, thankfully, we did have thought leaders like Jamf, who created new ways to streamline these IT processes, and we had thought leaders like Okta, who created new ways to seamlessly and securely access the applications we use every day. With these technologies, we really did start that shift from a contentious IT and business relationship to one where IT enables the business to move faster, to innovate, and to differentiate, which is really what our job should be. All right, so we fixed it. We're good. No, we did not. So we have made a lot of big strides. Things have definitely gotten better. But the users are still encountering roadblocks. IT still has manual processes. We can do better, and our IT staff still needs to spend more time listening to the business, understanding their challenges, and honestly, investigating solutions and driving that innovation. It's pretty well known at this point we're not going to get more headcount. So we have to automate. Let's talk about what we can do today. First time I saw this quote, it was really impactful to me because when I changed jobs, this was kind of my scenario. So this is a little bit about me, but I'm going to run you through the idea that if we're going to automate, and I apologize for the white slides, anyway. So, I had no idea it was going to be brighter than the sun. I really want to focus, I'm going to drive automation, if I'm going to drive this innovation, I want to start at the very beginning for an employee, their first day experience. When somebody walks in your organization, you're setting the tone for how they are going to interact with IT for the rest of their career. And I'm going to run through a scenario. Jane is a new employee at my company. I've deployed Okta, I've deployed Jamf Pro, and I've deployed Jamf Connect. So it's the first day, Jane just started, and she woke up, and she had an email waiting in her personal email. The same email she used to apply for the job, she had this welcome email. It arrived while she was sleeping. And this email prompts her to create her new work account. So she clicks on the link, she sets up her credentials, she downloads an app from the App Store, And now she has access to HR applications. She has access to her new email account, where she already has a meeting invite from her manager. She hasn't even arrived in the office yet, and she already feels ready to get to work. At her 9 a.m. orientation, she receives her brand new MacBook. And she boots it up for the first time, but she's a little bit confused because IT didn't give her another impossible to type or remember password. And she's prompted instead to enter the same credentials she set up this morning. And I was making sure the animation was playing. And so she used a credential she already knows to log into her new MacBook. And now she has access to her workstation as well as her applications. So it's 10 a.m. on Jane's first day, and everything she needs to be productive is already in her hands. She's not waiting. She's not stuck wondering what to do next. At her old company, she didn't get her laptop for almost 4 days. She had a half a dozen usernames and passwords to remember, written in a notebook, because that's where you put them. And she didn't ever feel like she was ever set up to be successful. So after this experience, Jane knows that changing jobs was the right decision. So this is pretty cool, right? This is something that is impactful. Are you challenging you? Are you setting up your employees to be productive on day 0? And I know this is an IT audience. A lot of you are skeptical. I get that. It's just not that easy. Well, let me assure you, all this exists today. You can do this without a huge project. And so I'm going to break down a couple of the details so you have a better understanding of what's happening behind the scenes. What Jane didn't see is that the HR system was integrated with Okta. And so we provisioned an account for her and all the applications she needed on her first day without IT intervention. IT did not have to be involved. Nobody was up at 3 in the morning sending her that email. It was all automated. We have pre-built integrations with all the leading HR platforms, and that's what initiated the entire experience. Jamf Connect was deployed to the Apple Business Manager enrolled MacBook, and it was configured to use Okta for authentication. This allowed IT to hand off the laptop without having to pre-configure it, and Jane was able to self-service provision. IT was not the roadblock, and they didn't have to go set up 14 new laptops and wait 4 days to distribute them because they were all ready to go. They were staged and available. Jamf Pro was installed on the laptop and was able to finish the configuration as well as deploy the software that Jane was going to need. This saved hours of IT work. I don't think I need to explain to you guys how great Jamf Pro is. Now, that app she grabbed from the App Store this morning was Okta Verify. And she didn't really need to know a lot about it because when she signs in, she gets a notification on her phone that says, is it you trying to log in? And she just says yes. That's it. It's very low friction, but what's actually happening is IT is enforcing multiple policies, multiple levels of defense to protect your account from compromise. And that's just one of them. And then Jamf Pro also ran a device trust enrollment agent that did create a key pair so that we can verify in Okta that she is using her corporate issued device and not a kiosk or other shared device or personal device. Because we do want to enforce our consistent IT policies. So, let's summarize. At my company, the users are happy, IT is spending their time on more impactful business projects, and security finally has those controls they've been asking for. So we've got no compromises, we have a great user experience, and security's happy? You betcha. So, that's a ton of stuff. We talked about all the problems of the past, we talked about the solutions for today, so what's next? Where do we go from here? Let's talk about tomorrow. Now, since I joined Okta, whenever I start to dream, this wall of text appears. I don't know why, but what I've been told is Safe Harbor protects my dreams from lawyers, and that's very, very important. So, we have been working very closely with our partner ecosystem to identify new and better ways to improve both security and usability. Zero trust and the ideas around it really create a whole new set of challenges in that we need partners who have been hyper-focused on devices and partners who have been hyper-focused on users to really, really integrate and work together in a very seamless manner. And there's not always a middle ground there. There's not a clear way for that integration to work, and existing standards don't always fit these use cases. So there's still work to be done, but what I think is really, really exciting is what we can do with Jamf Protect. In a zero trust model, you need continuous authentication. And the endpoint protection solution on your laptop actually knows what the current status is. There's risk signals that are being created. There's a lot of information and context that needs to be shared. And when that information changes, when something happens to the device and it becomes non-compliant or compromised, what is that downstream effect? If sessions were already established as high assurance, but the assurance level has now changed, how should the ecosystem react? Do we need to re-authenticate, or is your access restricted? That's where the IT or security department decides. We need a flexible risk-based policy engine so that you can make those decisions for your own organization. And then, taking a step back, what I did say, and it's very important here, is I'm talking about a bigger picture. I'm not talking about an application. I'm not talking about Jamf or Okta. I'm talking about an ecosystem. When we talk about best-of-breed technology integrations, we need to think about a broad ecosystem of applications that are running potentially in different platforms and different data centers and everything else. And so how can we make that ecosystem communicate? How can we share information securely and quickly to have that downstream impact? And we need to share that context not just within our ecosystem, but to the broader ecosystem as a whole, so that contextual access policies can be enforced consistently across a broad set of applications. It's not constrained to just Okta or just Jamf. And with this idea of the ecosystem communicating, it's really interesting conversations I'm having with our partner community in the fact that we are able to help define and really shape the way that this is going to work long term. This is a zero trust network effect that's going to make a huge impact. And we get to be part of that. We get to have very interesting conversations and be able to drive that architecture going forward. So, in summary, I want to leave you with one kind of thoughts from myself on how we need to think about these topics, in that a common goal for all of us working in IT is that we should provide solutions that offer alternatives to saying no. IT and security may have great justifications for why we say no, you can't do that, but what the business hears is no, you can't work today, and that's just not an option. And so concepts like zero trust with context sharing enable yes, but, where the user can continue to work. They're able to continue to be productive from an imperfect device, because that's going to happen. But we need to have that context to say that there's some applications you can't access, or in some of your applications, you cannot download files, but you are able to view and edit them online. And that level of granularity, that context sharing is going to be really, really impactful. The end goal of all this is that the user's still working, the business is still operating, and we're reducing risk and making intelligent decisions in real time. I believe that this is the future of work. So, with that, like I said, I had a lot to say in a very much short amount of time. Thank you all for your time and attention. I hope you're excited about this future opportunity to balance usability and security and produce the best user experiences, not just on Mac, but across all the platforms. So, thank you. Back to you, Josh.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it. So we've heard a ton this morning about the Mac and creating great user experiences, but we've left out iPhone and iPad, which are truly loved by many and adopted widely in the enterprise. But the downside with iPhone and iPad is that they introduce all kinds of different challenges because of their flexibility and mobility. And we've spent a lot of time thinking about that as well. So to tell you a little bit more about how Jamf is thinking about iPhone and iPad, I would like to invite to the stage Adam Mahmood, Healthcare Solution Marketing Manager. Adam?
Thank you, Josh. As mobile devices like iPhone and iPad proliferate throughout organizations, we're witnessing new types of complexities in these device deployments that we've historically never had to consider. Now, in some of these cases, this is due to just the sheer number of devices that users need to embrace, kind of like Joel, to get their job done, right? In other cases, this is due to the challenges around our wireless network infrastructure, something all of us here can parallel to with our phone yesterday. And in other situations, organizations are deploying mobile devices without really thinking through the unique value that they provide, or the specific workflows that the devices might modernize, which of course is the whole point. How do we drive productivity and efficiency for our users? Now, these are challenges that can affect mobility initiatives in any industry. However, today we'll be examining them through the lens of clinical communication deployments in healthcare. Now, as Jamf has continued to invest in helping healthcare organizations succeed with Apple, we've been thinking through how many of these challenges might be mitigated through integrations and strategic partnerships. So with that, I'd like to invite Tim Needham to the stage, Chief Commercial Officer at Patient Safe Solutions, to tell us about their unique approach that we've been working on together. Tim?
What's up, man? Thank you, Adam.
We appreciate you being here today. So to get started, can you give us a brief snippet of who Patient Safe is and what your mission is?
Yeah, sure. Our mission really is about making the experience of care simple and effective, not only for the caregivers, for the patient, also health system administrators. Talk a little bit about what we do. We're an enterprise app developer. We use iOS devices in hospitals to help care teams become much more efficient at taking care of the patient. I'll ask a question. If I were to ask a question, who in this room knows a drug dealer that uses a pager? Not many people with their hands up. You all should. It's your doctor. Literally the environment working out there. So our job is to bring an app that basically allows voice over Wi-Fi, texting, alerting to an inbox, detailed patient information, being able to see who else is taking care of the patient all in one spot on a mobile device, on an iPhone for the end user. What we find is it's a really compelling story, keeping in mind we're a little behind in healthcare IT. But the devil, it's really the details of the implementation complexity and how do we sustain these fleets right now that we struggle with.
Sure. Thanks for the overview. So can you provide us some comments on what's really driving this trajectory around mobility in healthcare? And then beyond that, what are some of the key challenges that you see health systems face as they look to modernize their approach?
Yeah, sure. We're really fragmented. I'll talk about that in a second with our communication in healthcare. Just to give you guys an idea of what's driving the investment in mobility, we're trying to get nurses and physicians to use a single app to do really 80 to 90% of their communication. We'd be happy with that. And we find that texting, voice, and delivery of critical alerts really makes that body of work. And mobility has the capability of driving that. In terms of the backdrop on the industry, I mentioned the pager thing. We really have a collaborative work environment. If you're in a hospital for 4 days, your average number of people that take care of you is 50. And they have to obviously communicate, collaborate a lot. Downside is today they're using legacy wireless phones, pagers, desk phones. They're yelling at each other down the hallway. So it's really a big mess. And in some cases, you've got groups of clinicians that take care of the same patient that actually use different technologies. So you constantly have to think about, how do I reach that doctor? How do I reach that nurse? And it's a tax, and it creates distractions. And those distractions kill patients. We know that from research. So it's something we have to address. We use shared device models a lot in healthcare, which complicates. We've got folks coming in, signing in, and grabbing an iPhone, logging in, and turning it in at the end of the day. It's not their personal device. Now, all that said, we absolutely have to fix this because our cost of labor in healthcare is over 50% of the operating revenue in the industry. So this is a big deal.
For sure. So it certainly sounds like many of these challenges are things that organizations in any industry could face as they look to implement mobile in their environment. So with the challenges, how is Patient Safe looking to methodically solve this problem in new ways?
No, thanks. We built a framework. We call it Mobile Maturity Model for Healthcare. Really, it's designed to take organizations that normally think very short term and force them to step back and put a strategic mobile vision, in place. We tend to be real short-sighted in healthcare, so this really helps that process.
Sure. So if we zoom in on the model and start to peel it apart, where does it really come together, and what do you see most critical for perhaps this audience?
Yeah, I think we worry a lot in healthcare about outcomes. Why are we doing what we're doing? So really 3 parts I'll focus on. One is current state and really documenting that. Why are we doing it? What has to change? Number 2 is infrastructure. The Achilles heel of mobile in healthcare has really been infrastructure, the cost and complexity and best practices. We deliver voice over Wi-Fi, which has a complexity to it. So we spend a lot of time with our customers managing through that. And then the third piece really is that sustainability piece. 2 big things about healthcare. If we screw up on a deployment, our clinicians have a lot of weight. So if we mess up once, it's 10 times harder to do it the next time. Secondarily, we have really understaffed IT departments. So if you think about deploying a mobile fleet across an entire health system, just the management of that will literally drown and overwhelm an IT department. One thing I'll mention there too on that one, we've got a couple partnerships that have evolved in the industry. We rely heavily on the benefit of what Cisco, Jamf, and Apple have done together, really to improve user experience. It's brought a lot of value back to the industry, so I just want to call that out.
Sure, sure. So do most organizations that you work with really see the need for a modern MDM? And even if they have an MDM, are they thinking through the ways that it may integrate with these different layers of the stack?
Yeah, it's good. A lot of them haven't, but we certainly spin their head around quick so that they do. I think if you don't develop a competency in mobile, like I said, you'll in mobile device management, you'll get drowned. So there's 3 areas we see benefit. App delivery for us, we use Jamf Pro, talking too fast, sorry. We deliver our app, no one has to touch the device with all the settings, et cetera. So that not only does that improve user experience, but from an IT staff standpoint, it makes it basically survivable. The infrastructure side, even if we do the infrastructure right, we do have to make sure that the devices, the apps are all marked correctly for network access. We use quality of service for our voice. And I'll just say on the device deployment side, I mean, we do deployments that don't use Jamf, and man, it's different. I mean, it's the tax on us, the tax on the client's bigger. I also manage our customer success and implementation teams, and our hot list of customers that are struggling right now. It's a litany of other MDM vendors, but we don't see Jamf on there. So it's made us unapologetic advocates to our customers of considering Jamf at a minimum for the iOS device fleet management.
We appreciate it, for sure. So after all the key capabilities have been addressed, how does this really come together in a rubric as you assess an organization's mobile maturity?
Yeah, thanks. We built a model, and it's got 5 stages we've identified. Goes everywhere from 0, which is kind of looking the other way and put a Band-Aid on an ad hoc mobile initiative, to organizations that aspire to be at that 4, which is it's really a mobile first. And to be mobile first, that mindset that we saw from SAP, that is not where healthcare has been. We typically find that most CIOs will report back to being stuck on a number 2 in our model. But what the model does at least is it gives the CIO a way to assess their organization, gives them a way to put a name to the strategy. And these are all things that go into really building credibility with the organization.
Awesome. And at the end of the day, it's really all about our users, right? So with what you see in healthcare and the demanding needs of clinical users, are there other vertical markets that you see maybe have parallels to those user needs?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's got to be. I mean, what we know about our user base is they are mobile. They're demanding. They're taking care of patients. They're saving lives. They also need reliable network access. What we have found in healthcare, again, get back to that demanding user, if anything in the system breaks down, then they tend to write off the entire ecosystem, the technology, the network, and just call it unreliable, and we end up with closets full of mobile devices. So I think that while we may be on an extreme, any vertical that has a large number of mobile workers, called field services, retail, hospitality, I'd expect over time more business critical work will be done mobile, so that same demand for consistent experience is going to grow. And I think the framework we built, something like it for every vertical, at a minimum it's going to reduce risk, it's going to reduce risk to adoption, and certainly give you a better chance of being sustainable.
Sure. Well, Tim, this has been an awesome conversation. We really appreciate you talking to us about up-leveling a mobility strategy. But there's one more thing. We've been working together for quite some time at UC San Diego Health, and wondering if you could maybe give us a brief update of the project there, since it's been a consistent theme at JNUC over the past number of years.
Yeah, it's cool. Add some continuity. So, yeah, UC San Diego Health started several years ago. They deployed iPads to their patients in every patient room in this new Jacobs Tower that's behind us in San Diego. And it really gave a lot of control over the environment to the patients, which is key to making patients feel comfortable at a difficult time. And while that was going on, we were chatting with them about, hey, what about the caregivers? Let's plan to get a fleet of iPhones out for them. And so this last summer, the quick update is we did get that deployed. What was interesting I found about the project, different from most, they had the deployment of Jamf in place. They were very comfortable with iOS devices, so really allowed us to divert our focus off of that and focus on their infrastructure upgrades, their workflow redesign, things that we probably wouldn't have focused on as much otherwise. So we went live this summer. End user feedback's great. I'd say the key success areas, voice performance there, we use Fastlane with Apple and Cisco. It's been great. And then the deployment model itself, we dropped 300 devices on all the shared devices on all the users in the course of a day across 2 facilities, and we had 0 operational issues relative to network connectivity or settings in the devices. So when we have a clean go live like that, it's great. Key thing I'd say is now they're repeatable. They've got a vision for over 1,000 iPhones across their users, so they literally have that deployment model. They pick it up and they plug in the next one. So it's kind of a neat project, and we love it because it's in our backyard. It's right across the street.
And it's, of course, near and dear to our heart, too.
Absolutely.
And so it's so cool to see this investment in the entire Apple ecosystem come to life, whether it be Macs for the back office or iOS devices for the frontline or the care, or patients.
Yeah.
So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us. We really think the model is something that any org could embrace as they look to deploy mobile in their world.
Yeah, sure, man.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So this model, of course, is impactful when we're deploying devices for employees. But mobile devices can have impacts far beyond the 4 walls of our hospital or school or business, well into the hearts of our community and right into our homes. As another part of our focus at Jamf around mobility, we've been thinking through new ways that devices can be used to make people powerful. It's a common theme. And in many cases, this is a IT user doing something that in the past was very technical in nature. Now, some of you may remember last year when we introduced 2 new user-focused applications, Jamf Setup and Jamf Reset. These apps allow a user to either provision or reset their device based on their current needs. For example, maybe you're a retail environment and you have a pool of iOS devices for training in the back, but during holiday times, you need to repurpose them for front-of-house point-of-sale. In other situations, you may have a need to provision a device just based on a change in environment. So with Jamf Setup and Jamf Reset, all of these scenarios are possible without having to open an IT ticket or wait for support. So if we look back into healthcare, there's yet another iOS use case that has emerged that is now benefiting patients in an entirely new way, keeping them connected to their care teams after they're discharged from the hospital. But when the need of the patient extends beyond the 4 walls of the facility and the requirements of their care change from one person to another, there's a lot to consider as to how to make this all possible. And so with that, we partnered with Locus Health to pull it all together. I'd like to invite Lindsay Koshansky, Vice President of Clinical Innovation, to the stage to tell you the story.
Thank you, Adam. I stand between you and your session, so we're going to keep this short. But thanks for having me, and thanks, JNUC. I hope you guys are having a great conference. At Locus, we believe bridging the gap between hospital and home is really key to patient success and a really transformative way for the healthcare system to start to take better care of the patients. They leave a really well-controlled environment at the hospital where they're well monitored. As you heard earlier, they have lots of people keeping eyes on them. And they go home to, at best, being sent home with papers and a binder and a pen to be able to record what's happening for them. So we developed an iOS-based solution that lives on an iPad, and we deploy it to patients after they leave the hospital. We really prioritize patient engagement because we have to remove many barriers to make sure that patients are going to use the tool properly. But we also had to prioritize security, ease of use for deployment. So I want to share a little bit of that with you today. And as you can see in this demo, we made the user interface really simple and streamlined. So when a patient logs in each day, they're seeing exactly what's been ordered for them. The platform's configurable, and it's tailored for the clinicians to be able to order exactly what the patient needs to be entering each day. They can enter in videos and pictures, and in combination with trends, that really gives the clinician a real insight into what's happening at home. The patient has their own insights so that they can see what's happening, and they can share that with multiple providers across their care plan. And they also have a digital library where they're able to access information. So really taking everything that they've been given either through paper or verbally from their clinical team at discharge and streamlining it into one tool so that they can communicate properly back with their care team. And after that data is submitted, it's coming back into the hospital system. So their clinical teams are able to view this data. This is a demo of the app that the clinician is able to log into and see the information right at their fingertips. It's coming back in a couple different ways. This is one example. And the clinicians can also see trends, make really informed decisions about what they're seeing. Maybe there's additional calculations with these trends. They're also seeing, as I shared before, the pictures and the videos, survey responses, and able to make a timely intervention with their patients and either get them back in to be seen or reassure them that they're doing really well at home. But we're not just the technology solution, and it's a fully managed program. So with our tool, the clinicians have the opportunity to intervene sooner and make timely interventions. But we also recognize that setting up these monitoring programs is very new for our clinical partners and really new for the health systems that we work with. So we deploy our nurses actually for our implementation team, and they work with our teams through design and implementation of the tool and stay involved and help with the support and the training of the tool for them. But we also need an effective deployment. We have to make sure that when we're introducing this new technology to their plan and their discharge process, that it's seamless and really easy for them to use. And so not only are we supporting the design and implementation and the education and the training, but we also have a help desk and we support the logistics of those iPads going back and forth. But sending iPads home, as you can imagine, is a little bit like the Wild Wild West. But I'm positive our iPads can tell some really great stories after being in a patient's home. And so the patients are leaving the hospital, and we have no line of sight into their home environment. We have no line of sight into what they're experiencing with the device. And so our goal was to really create a unique experience with the iPad, create a healthcare appliance with that, and provide a managed solution that would allow for easy user adoption and also a seamless communication, and removing all the barriers and the questions of, does a patient even know what a smart device is? Do they have Wi-Fi in the home? Are they covered under a data plan? Wanted to remove those barriers and provide one tool that made it easy for patients to get into the program. So we recognized we needed a mobile device management tool. We needed to control the data usage, and we needed to provide apps based on the program specifications. We white labeled the solution, so the hospital logo is on all of the iPads that we deploy, really extending care beyond those hospital walls and making it feel like the hospital and that care team is going home with the patient. But each program is really different, and our patients come from many different backgrounds. They have different socioeconomic levels, healthcare literacy. Some of them don't even know what a smart device is. But one of those as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest parts of that process is making sure that our clinical teams have an easy way to deploy that tool. We definitely cannot expect a clinician to be IT. So Jamf has really enabled our solution in a key and critical way. Key because, as I mentioned earlier, one of our #1 objectives was making sure that the patient experience was solid and in place, but also critical because obviously being in healthcare, security and management of that tool has to be a top priority. So we're able to control that configuration, tailor that experience for the intended use. And Jamf enables our ability to manage the iPads for the program and provide a really secure tool. But we're also able to confidently answer the question when the clinicians ask, how are we going to deploy these iPads and how our patients are going to use it? And it's really easy to answer them because we feel confident telling them they're going to be confident deploying a tool that's secure, managed, and going to be a really easy thing for them to be able to deploy their patients and feel confident that they're going to get it back and be able to use it again with the next patient. So we were initially deploying devices. We were able to manage the location. We were able to configure the apps, but have since made really big ongoing improvements to how we support this tool and how we're able to get iPads in and out and set them up with programs. So many of our programs, we have some episodes of care where patients are using this in a very short period of time, so there's high iPad turnover. And we have other episodes of care that the iPad is out in the field for a really long time. So those varying time of using the device can create a lot of logistical changeover, and we needed to make that seamless. So many of our programs have grown, obviously, in flexibility and patient volumes, but also in program growth. And so that's where Jamf setup came in. So as we deployed one program and then a hospital would grow to many programs, we wanted to find the ability to centralize the iPads that a health system was using. And so Jamf setup allowed for us to have multiple programs running at one hospital with one pool of iPads and being able to deploy an iPad and choose easily what program that they needed configured. But also at the end of the episode, we needed to make it easy, whether it be Locust turning that iPad over or the clinician receiving that iPad back from the patient, utilizing Jamf Reset to clear that iPad, not only digitally, but protect patient privacy. And again, they're really busy, so they need it to be seamless and easy. And the education of that for our clinicians takes about 10 seconds, which is awesome because that's about the attention that they have for you when you're training them on some of these things. So the workflow enables not only the deployment with ease, but for the clinician, but also for the patient and family. Because our top priority is making sure that these patients are getting home and they're focusing on transitioning home from the hospital, recovering, and allowing the family to care for their loved one in a really meaningful way and enable that care at home. So once we've had that framework in place with Jamf, the programs really started to grow, as I mentioned. And at UVA, we started there about 3.5 years ago with one program and 10 iPads, which seemed like a really big deal at the time. But since then, UVA's expanded to over 8 programs, and we circulate hundreds of iPads through their system each day. So instead of separate inventories, we're now able to pool those iPads. A clinician pulls it, they choose their program with Jamf setup, and then they're able to get a patient started with ease. And again, like I mentioned, they're able to get it reset and feel confident that they've cleaned it properly, and they're able to give it to the next patient. And as a result, our programs are reporting decreased readmissions, decreased length of stay, improvements in feedings for newborns at home, increased throughput of patients through units, better utilization of clinic visits, and increased patient satisfaction. At one of our hospitals, at OHSU Dornbecker, they just reported an 11-day decrease in length of stay for NICU babies that were able to go home with a Locust iPad. I just want to point out that when a baby's born, if any of you have unfortunately had to experience a baby going to the NICU after birth, every day is very meaningful for a family. So if we're able to enable our care teams with a tool and they're able to send even 1 day home sooner a child with their family and extend that care and monitor them properly, is a really tremendous impact on a family. Them, but also the healthcare system and the care that they're able to provide. So healthcare is transforming, and at Locust, we really believe the ability to provide the care at home is a critical part of how health systems should be approaching care, but also maintain security, which sometimes means nothing. So in turn, the clinicians feel capable and able to send a patient home with this dependable tool and manage properly, and we're able to provide that whole experience that we set out to do initially. So thank you guys for having me. Enjoy your JNUC. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm going to be 1 minute, and we got to get you out of here so you can get going. I wanted to let you know where we are in terms of JNUC 2020. Minneapolis has served us well over the last 10 years. We've gone from 100 to 2,000 attendees, but we decided that we've really kind of outgrown what we need here. And quite frankly, wouldn't it be nice to go someplace where there's warm weather as well? So I'm excited to announce, maybe it's the worst kept secret in the world, we're going to be going to San Diego next year, JNUC 2020. 2 things I'll say is we'll miss Minneapolis. We certainly know it's going to be a great experience with weather we'll love, and I hear the Wi-Fi is awesome. So I want to just say thank you for your time and attention today. You've been a wonderful audience, and have a wonderful day. And we'll see you tonight at the JNUC party.